WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today I'm in Ireland, to be exact, Teeling, to be even exacter, Single Pot Still Irish Whiskey batch number 2 and batch number 3. So batch number 2 was released in January of 2019. Batch number 3 was released in June of 2019. And they are both 46%. They are both non-chilled filtered. They are both without color added. 50% unmalted and 50% malted barley together makes, in this case, the Single Pot Still, which Teeling has now released. I did a review of the batch number 1, and now I'm going to do a review of the batch number 2. This is virgin oak, this has ex-wine casks, and this has ex-bourbon casks. This has exactly the same composition, even though they tweaked it a little bit and revised it a little bit and actually improved it a little bit. This is whiskey base number 125481. This is whiskey base number 134175. The batch number 1 was 6,000 bottles that they threw on the market immediately after the whiskey became 3 years old. I personally would say that was a little bit quick, since the whiskey absolutely did not agree with my palate. Daryl Love is the commercial manager at Teeling, a guy I interviewed in Hamburg at the end of 2018, a person who was recently also in Germany at the release of the batch number 3 party. I also was able to listen and watch an interview with him, and he mentioned the fact that they did a lot of research and development on batch number 2, and those 10,000 bottles. They did a lot, and now they're actually, they released the batch number 3 over here to Germany to further improve and to calibrate that whiskey exactly how they want to have it. There will be no batch number 4. What's going to happen is, if I understand everything correctly, in the database of the TBB, whatever it is, the label for the Teeling Single Pot has appeared. And so what they're going to do is they're going to actually just send them all over the States and then all over the world, those single pot still whiskeys. So there's batch 1, 2, 3, and then the real release. So I personally think there's about 20% virgin oak, 20% ex-wine cask, and about 60% first fill bourbon cask. I have no confirmation whatsoever of that, but that's just what my palate has said. They were released for 55 euros for this one, for batch number 2, and over here for batch number 3 in Germany we got it for 39 euros, which is like $45. This would be about $62 for batch number 2, which is a lot. Interesting enough, I got this from Belgium. So welcome to Europe. I got the batch number 1 from Ireland directly. I've got batch number 2 from Belgium. I got batch number 3 here from Germany. Now, I have done a video about this. I spent some time with both of these bottles, and I must say that batch number 1 was a very, very big disappointment for me, because I know single pot still whiskey. So this is, for me, Single Pot Still whiskey. Powers, 12 years old. This is, for me, Single Pot Still whiskeys. Green spot, yellow spot, red spot. And of course we have our Redbreast, which is Single Pot Still whiskey. The cask strength 12-year-old. Maybe the best whiskey out there in Ireland beside the 21-year-old from Redbreast. I've tried the Dingle Single Pot Still whiskey. Didn't knock me off my hawker either. Didn't knock me off my socks out either. Now this stuff doesn't either. I'm sorry. I wish I could give a raving review about this. Now, I bought these bottles myself. This is not in any way endorsed, so it's 100% my official opinion. Probably I will not be getting any free whiskey from Teeling in the future by not being a fanboy. I am a fanboy of Teeling. If you want great whiskey for a great price, buy the single malt. This stuff is unbeatable for the price. I just love the Madeira. I love the sherry. I love the port. I love everything that's involved in this. I think it's 6 or 7 different casks involved in that. A price point can't be beat. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Single cask from Teeling. But this new stuff is just way too young. They're trying to push stuff out there before it's actually ready. And I must tip my hat to one distillery, and it's Waterford. Waterford Irish distiller said 6, maybe 8 years. We're going to wait until we put the first stuff on the market. Even though they have whiskey that's 3 years old, they said, nope, we're not going to do that. And Teeling decided to do that, and I think it's actually at the moment hurting, and is going to hurt actually their reputation more than if they had waited until things are actually really, really done. One little tiny comment. I'm not the whiskey expert. I'm just whiskey from the viewpoint of an American. I personally believe that a single malt after 3.5 years tastes better than a single pot still. Single pot still in this case is 50% malted barley, which means starch has been converted to sugars, and 50% unmalted barley, which is starch, which means there's a lot more happening in order to get that sugar, that sweetness, that alcohol out of there. And it gives a special type of pot still spice, which is very, very difficult to manage at a very, very young age. So if Irish whiskey wanted to do something great, they would have waited and they would have released a single malt before they did the single pot still, which is typical Ireland. In America, you can't have bourbon. In Canada and Mexico and Europe, you cannot make bourbon because it's a native spirit to America. You can't make Scotch anyplace else outside of Scotland, and you cannot make single pot still anyplace else outside of Ireland. But yet, they tried to push something, they rushed something, and it wasn't yet ready. Personal opinion, WhiskyJason here. On the nose. On the nose. Okay, they're improving. I don't have the batch 1 anymore. I'm sorry. I would love to have had the batch 1, 2, and 3 with each other, but I know the batch 1 was the worst, so I'm going to just ignore that for a moment. What I get with batch number 2 is I get a honey melon cantaloupe type of thing that's been over about 3 weeks too long down in your refrigerator. And you pick it up and it falls apart and it's just kind of starting to rot. Not a nice nose, I know, but that's what I get. Number 2, if you take a birch tree, you take off the bark and you lick it. That green wood moment. And number 3, imagine your little baby burps on your little blanket on your shoulder, and then you have that little bit of that spit there, and you have that the milk, that acid, that little bit there, and it's just like, oh, okay. That's what I'm getting here as well. There's a little bit of vanilla in there. There's a little bit of a little bit more, and there's a very strong green apple that's a crab apple that's not ripe yet. Not a nosing whiskey. Over here, batch number 3. They've toned down that baby problem. They've toned down, the cantaloupe is about a week, maybe the honey melon better, a week overdue and not yet starting to rot, but it's very, very overripe. The crab apple's turned into a Granny Smith apple. And I actually get a tiny little bit of vanilla and a little bit of alcohol. I don't get hardly any alcohol here. It's due to all the other factors that are just overpowering everything else. And there's a sulfur type of moment in there as well. Not my cup of tea. All right, so I'm going to taste each and every one of them. So my control whiskey for the day was, first of all, this. And I also have had the Powers 12 also today, which is a great value for money. If you can get a 12-year-old Powers single pot still whiskey, highly recommendable. The competition rivals, but still good stuff. What really, really bugs me is the finish. It's bitter, it's tart, astringent, and just plain old not nice. It doesn't start off nice. It does improve a little bit with fruitiness. The alcohol kicks in with the tannins, and then that finish is really, really, really bad. The problem is I want to like this stuff. I was in Teeling last year, summer of 2018. I did the distillery tour. I love the products. I love the story. John Teeling with his wonderful Cooley distillery, his sons Jack built this. The 3 stills there named after the daughters of the family. They're doing great stuff. But it's just not mature enough. Going over to the about 6 months longer matured batch number 3. As I said, the nose is a little bit better. We're about 20% better than this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is getting better. Especially the finish is not something where I go. I almost want to spit out the batch number 3. Batch number 2. I'm sorry. The batch number 3 is like, oh, towards the end. Okay, no, what a shame. But this is like, oh, can I get rid of it quick? So batch number 3, we have our very, very not yet ripe Granny Smith apples. We have here our more of a honey melon than a cantaloupe. If I'm going to, instead of going for over ripe, I'm going to go for not yet ripe. A pear that's not yet ripe, and also that green apple I already talked about that's not yet ripe. Towards the end, astringency, a little bit of tartness. The alcohol is okay. A little bit of vanilla in there. It's very, very nice. A tiny little bit of a walnut. Yeah. The entire mouthfeel is much better. It's oily compared to this. It's not anywhere near Redbreast 12 yet. But it has to do with the casks, and it has to do with the age. And I think Teeling they have great casks, or at least they have very good casks. But what they just cannot do is you cannot rush whiskey in Ireland. If they took that same spirit and aged it in Kentucky, India, or Thailand, they would have had totally different results. But of course, they're aging it in Ireland, and Ireland is not famous for its wonderful weather and its temperature changes day in and day out. So if I were to give this actually a grade, batch 1 would fail, batch 2 would have a D-, and this is a D+. It's not a C, not yet, it's a D-. Value for money, this would be actually a fail. And this is also D with its $45, or 39 euros. I wish I could say go buy the Teeling Single Pot Still whiskey, but I can't. What I can say, and I am going to say, is buy this. Teeling Single Malt. Yummy. Very, very nice. Very fruity. It's almost like a cocktail in your mouth with all the different fruit flavors. This is very, very good. If you can get a single cask from Teeling. Maybe I had a 13-year-old port single cask. Oh, I could have just drank all that bottle all by myself. It's so good. Teeling's making great products. They experimented with chestnut. They experimented with Hungarian oak. That was interesting. And they're continuing to experiment as well. So watch this space for good stuff from Teeling. Unfortunately here they rushed it a little bit too much, and I am not pleased with the result. So my question of the day is, do you know any 3- or 4-year-old whiskeys out there brand new on the market that are actually nice? I would recommend something called Glasgow 1770. I would recommend Coswolt's Founder's Choice. And I could recommend a German whiskey, which you'll probably never see. That is Kilian Signature Edition 1. All of these whiskeys are 3 years plus a few months, and they taste phenomenal for that age. You compare it to something 12-year-old, you're going to go, well, not really. But for that age, they are fantastic. Now, Dingle, 3-year-old, batch number 1 was fantastic. And there's a few other things out there. So that's my question of the day. Which whiskeys out there that are brand new that you go, wow? That would really, really interest me. Not American. Probably not anything from India or also Taiwan, but let's go for mainland Europe, the home, either Scotland or Ireland, of our Ashkaba, our Irish, our whiskey. So thank you very much for watching. Whiskey Jason here. Thumbs up. Thank you very much for liking. Please subscribe. Please ring the bell. Please tell others about this crazy American tasting whiskey you might not ever see, or may take a little while for you to get it. Whiskey Jason here. Whiskey from the viewpoint of an American, and I live in Germany. So bye-bye. All the best. See you soon. My videos come out on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Ciao. Bye.